Mr. President, I have the privilege to visit Cuba many times before. Once again, and I speak on behalf of the full Surinamese delegation, we must say that we feel at home and we enjoy your warm hospitality. The 1st of January of this month has been an important day for you and for the people of Cuba. And I wish to take this opportunity to reiterate our sincere congratulations on the celebration of the 55th anniversary of the heroic Cuban Revolution. We take also this opportunity to acknowledge Cuba's pro tempore presidency of CELAC. Your inspiring leadership, Mr. President, has made it possible for the pro tempore secretariat to handle an enormous load of work during the past period. We want to express our deepest appreciation and we applaud you for your efforts and results we are enjoying today. A special welcome goes to our colleagues from Dominica, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We appreciate their presence here, since they have recently, as mentioned before, suffered such extensive damage and loss of life due to heavy rains and wind causing unprecedented and severe flooding. I trust that CELAC and its member states will continue their special support in solving the immediate and future needs of these sister nations. Mr. President, the presence of observers from, in fact, all continents at this meeting is a clear evidence of the growing worldwide acceptance of the CELAC initiative. The CELAC initiative as a new international reality. It obliges us to pay close attention to the various options for cooperation, both bilaterally and multilaterally. Mr. President, one of the outstanding pioneers in the radical eradication of poverty, Archbishop Helder Camara, once made a very interesting point. He said, and I quote, "When I give food to the poor, they call me a saint. When I ask why the poor have no food, they call me a communist." The world at large admired and adored the work of Mother Teresa with the poor in India. However, when people do their utmost to deal with the roots of poverty, they are often considered to be too radical, too revolutionary. When our sister nation, Haiti, was hit with the earthquake, followed by hurricanes and flooding, the world reacted speedily. But after the most immediate problems were dealt with and Haiti entered the phase of reconstruction and fundamental structural change, politics and bureaucracy presented themselves at center stage. And as the people of Haiti can testify, the flame of rescue does not match the fire in the engine for structural change. Mr. President, the theme of this meeting is very timely and appropriate. We can no longer live with the fact that approximately 500, 600 million people live in a vast area of more than 20 million square kilometers with good climate conditions for agriculture and with abundance of natural resources for industrial use and job creation. Yet millions of those inhabitants are confronted with hunger and poor living conditions and are badly trained to participate in a modernized economy. I have learned this week of the most startling statistic that has gone viral from the World Economic Forum in Davos, a place that is as far removed as one can be from us here in Havana. We meet here in Havana in a pole directly opposite to the meaning in the Swiss Alps of Davos in every sense. There, the select few of the world's richest people meet to discuss measures to keep the global economy growing, and we of the global South are promised growth with less inequality. But how do we begin to believe this when we are treated to a cold and startling statistic that the richest 85 persons in the world who would fit in a bus own as much as half of the world population of 7 billion people? I have found this fact so disturbing that I have to repeat it. 85 individuals own as much as the combined half of mankind. And do any of these people live in South America and the Caribbean, a region that is known for its income inequality? Chairman, I'm trying to find out. In our opinion, a limited access to knowledge and technology, a limited access to financial means combined with limited political power sharing are at the very roots of hunger, illiteracy, and inequalities in our societies. As is well known, Suriname is a country with at least 7 different ethnic groups. Since Suriname introduced general elections in 1948, we have been able to observe a very interesting development of the different ethnic groups. We have witnessed the fast upward mobility of the Surinamese of specifically Japanese and Maroon descent. In the case of both groups, their upward mobility is related, among other factors, to improved educational systems combined with more access to funds in the form of salaries and banking facilities, and a wider participation in the political process, especially since the 1987 Constitution. These forces have propelled them into full participation in Surinamese society, now being part of my government. We are also happy to note that in recent years, an additional marginalized group, the indigenous people of Suriname, are now clearly on the path of improvement. We find them in higher echelons of our society. And again, it was due to better access to education, to financial means, and to political power sharing. Cuba, our host for this meeting, remains a shining example of what education and the just distribution of limited financial means can do for Caribbean people. We are convinced that the long overdue ending of the economic, commercial, and financial blockade against the Cuban people will result in a social economic boom of unknown proportions. I think that the PM of Barbados also mentioned this, and I fully agree with him. We note also that the unilateral economic exploitation of the natural resources of the Malvinas Islands, South Georgias, and South Sandwich Islands without acknowledgement of the legitimate rights of the Argentine People Republic over these territories is unacceptable, as it takes away the availability of strategic resources of the Argentine people in its struggle against poverty. Mr. President, CELAC has the mandate and the capacity to establish a clear path towards eradication of poverty. First, we have to make an inventory of our national potentials. Secondly, we will need a clear overview of a regional resource base. These data may serve as a basis to design an effective strategy. During the past years, extensive discussions were held with regard to the strategic and socio-economic use of our natural resources. We have produced within UNASUR and CELAC excellent concepts and mechanisms to define a continental strategy on the use of our natural resources for the integral development of our region. Since Suriname has the pro-tempore presidency of UNASUR, we will do our utmost to promote a close interaction between UNASUR and CELAC in order to create the kind of synergy that will push us forward, preventing needless duplication of programs and actions. It is well known that in various CELAC member states there are high-level and prestigious scientific research centers. We believe that a CELAC-driven interaction between these centers and making them available to our students, teachers, and researchers will create a cross-fertilization that will prove to be an important tool in the pursuit of wealth and eradication of poverty. The same line of thought can be applied when we consider the need to strengthen our negotiating capacity. The creation of a regional negotiating mechanism will help us harmonize the general conditions for foreign direct investment. The introduction of provisions for education and training health and safety, community development, and environmental services must become vital elements in our negotiations with foreign investors. This is the only way to go when we aim at making the extractive sectors of our economy sustainable. There is a need to improve the availability of funds in order to put this into action. It is necessary to make a thorough study of how to create a solid and sustainable relationship between our banking system and the financing of small and middle-sized enterprises. Legal and social instruments must be put in place to improve the accessibility of funds. Private-public partnerships have proven their worth in this respect. At the regional level, we would ask CELAC to take the initiative to list and analyze all the internal and external financial resources that are available to the region. This basic analysis could help us find ways to prevent duplication and, where possible, to harmonize procedures and conditions in order to shorten the road, as I mentioned yesterday, to shorten the road between ideas and implementation. Allow me, Mr. President, to state that whatever plans we have for improving and strengthening our negotiating capacity and make funds available to our countries and people, we must also highlight, as mentioned before, the impact of climate change. We have recently witnessed serious, unprecedented events in the small islands of the Caribbean. Suriname itself experienced a short but heavy hailstorm, and many other islands and the coast of the Guyanas are threatened by coastal inundation in the next 20 years. We therefore need to include these new realities in our programs and actions. Mr. President, at a more political level, I listened yesterday to the discussions, and I listened yesterday also and today to the statesman. But there is one important thing I want to add at this meeting. We should develop a spirit of friendship and solidarity based on trust and mutual respect in our multilateral as well as our bilateral relations. We should never forget that our focus within CELAC cannot only be linked to our brains, but should become part of our heart. This becomes all the more important with a view to the fact that the powers that have dominated us in colonial and neo-colonial times are still very present and not necessarily aligned to our ideas of unification in the interest of the pursuit of wealth and eradication of poverty. In this regard, we applaud the establishment of Latin American and the Caribbean as a zone of peace, where we will settle our differences through dialogue and negotiations. History has proven that war
and its devastating effects on humans and their environment is a source of poverty and degradation. We look forward to the next meeting in Costa Rica, the member state that will be presiding over the pro-tempore CELAC Secretariat. Excellency President Laura Chinchilla Miranda will have a gigantic task, but we are convinced that she will be able to lift CELAC up to the next stage. And at that meeting, will allow us to make a proper evaluation of the goals we have set in the draft declaration that we are reviewing here today. Mr. President, in closing, I want to draw the attention of this high-level meeting to the small states in our region suffering from the annual recurrence of hurricanes and flooding. These islands also face a decline in the tourist sector, which is so vital for their economies. The financial crisis in Europe and in North America are at the roots of this decline. In this respect, we would welcome especially CELAC CARICOM initiative to address the vulnerability of these small islands. We have to remain aware of the fact that interdependence is not a luxury. Globalization has taught us strong lessons. The time of domination of one nation over another has passed. No country, whether big or small, can survive on its own. Recognizing this gives regional solidarity a strong moral meaning. This awareness makes true solidarity the guiding light in our struggle to pursue wealth and eradicate poverty and hunger. We must commit ourselves to combine efforts to ending poverty. We must ensure that women, as the PM of Jamaica mentioned yesterday, to ensure that women, the poorest of the poor in all societies, and by extension by their children, do not wander the streets looking in garbage for food and sleeping under disposed packaging of the boxes of the wealthy. We must commit to a society where every human being can have a reasonable expectation of health, education, shelter and work, and the promise of a better life for their children, now and in the future. We believe that the existing inequalities constitute a real danger for mankind as a whole. It is in the interest of the haves and also the have-nots to strive for more balance, thus preventing nations and individuals to spend millions in so-called security measures instead of feeding and educating those in need. Mr. President, our historic heroes who have dealt with slavery, indentured labor, and neo-colonial exploitation have set the pace. The time is now for us to accept the challenge to continue with the liberation of our peoples to become rich through a just distribution of wealth, know-how, political power,
and thus eradicate unacceptable poverty and inequalities from our shores. Mr. President, on behalf also of my government, the people of Suriname will thank Cuba, the brothers Castro. I will thank Venezuela, starting with Comandante Cafés, and now continue our President Maduro, our friends in the region, Brazil, Ecuador, and others for the support. I will thank all of you that in difficult times we know Suriname have friends who know the historic task, who have studied history and know what's going on. Mr. President, I don't take too much of your time. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Muito obrigado. And my friend there always say, merci beaucoup. Thank you. Thank you.